Good morning, everybody. We have Rob, Digital Asset News. We have Marty Party. For some of you who may not know, Rob and I were the original DCA way back in the day,
No
2021.
worry.
Yeah,
Don't
remember
worry.
that, Rob?
Those were good. I remember 2021. Those were good times. Good
Yeah,
times.
it was you, me, and George from Trezor.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
And then, things change, people move on, but good people always stay the same. How are you, my friend?
I'm pretty good. I'm doing better than the markets, but I think things will just repair themselves as time goes on.
Exactly. We'll dig into a lot of that today. We'll catch up on where you are, how you feel about the world, all the change that's happened since we last spoke, what portfolios look like, and how you feel about all the crazy stuff happening in the world. Marty, did you get any rest this weekend with all the stuff going on since Friday? It was pretty bonkers. I know you're sharing flight plans and everything else.
What a week, James. Holy cow. We covered the whole war. It was insane. I got some rest last night, but it was a really intense weekend. I mean, it's been insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, called the bottom at 98, so we'll see if it sticks.
Yeah. Don't forget, by the way, links for Marty, if we're streaming over, and Rob, your channel, it will be linked below as well. Where do we go? We have a big agenda I'll pull up in a second, but I just want to catch up on how people feel. We saw, my theory is I was watching the liquidation levels, as probably you were, Marty, too. We have to talk about how traditional markets weren't phased at all over the weekend. I was watching futures, I was watching markets all over the world, no problems whatsoever. But crypto, Bitcoin especially, got hammered. And I was watching all the 50x liquidation levels. Every time they kept on pushing the price down. 99.6, 99.2, 95, and then Marty, was so funny. Then a new 50x would pop up, and then they push it down further. It was just talk to us about that, Marty, because Rob, I'm sure would like to hear about that too. As to it was clear
I've
as
been
day.
following it for a while, and I came around to the truth of how typically crypto works. Bitcoin specifically. It started with Bitcoin. It's pretty much modulated entirely to support. Good morning. It's modulated entirely to support the leverage futures trading market, which is primarily the largest market in the industry. That's Binance, Bybit, OKX, and all the offshore exchanges. And they use market makers, they use wash trading, all the classic techniques of the old law that have been banned in the USA pretty much. But basically they liquidate traders. So their entire goal is to make sure nobody goes long and sticks a high leverage long. That's pretty much in a nutshell. How they do it, there's many ways they do it. But if you watch the liquidation levels, it's clear as day what's going on. To the dollar, you can predict the markets. It's an edge. I've been doing it for a while. The more people that know about it, the better. I've been trying to spread the message. Traditional TA is a trap. They'll prepare head and shoulders, and then right when everyone thinks they've called it right, they'll go and liquidate them. So if you follow the liquidation levels like James has started doing, you'll understand very shortly, if you've got half a brain, what's going on, and you'll become a better trader. So there we go.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of, and Rob, you and I lived through this, the capped, manipulated series of 2021, 2022 because of all the bad players in the space. Marty and Rob, how do you think it's changed this time around? Is it just Binance and Wintermute now in control instead of FTX and other bad players? And they're still doing the same methods, the spoofing, the dumping?
I follow them. I follow the actual transactions. Thank God this time around. Rob, so you can go ahead after me quickly. I follow the transactions. So in other words, when the exchanges do their manipulation, they send the assets. They either send Ethereum, now a lot of Solana, which is really interesting. That's catching up. So they send value to the market makers. Now, who the market makers are, it's been primarily Wintermute for the last 6 months, running the show for all the exchanges. What recently has happened, James, since Circle had the IPO, Circle has got involved. Circle is now sending stablecoin to Wintermute, Jump
Oh, wow.
Trading, and Abraxas Capital have got back involved. Now, I don't know if you guys know about Abraxas Capital, but they were involved when the Bybit 1.4 billion hack happened. They were very much part of that in the background. Abraxas Capital is a big market maker out of London. They're all out of London. It's really interesting. Wintermute and Abraxas out of London. But Jump Trading, you know, the legends, you saw their post. They said, "We're back, baby." Well, they're back. And so stablecoin gets moved to the market makers where they buy on behalf of the exchanges, and assets get sent to the market makers where they sell them on behalf of the exchanges to move the price to flush leverage traders. So we've got new market makers in the game. Now, if you all know Jump Trading, we're very much part of the last bull run. So it's optimistic news. Jump Trading, when they get involved, typically we're going up. So, and Circle, very interesting. Black Horse out of nowhere. What is their agenda? In my opinion, because they have digital dollar on the networks, they need to acquire a lot of the stake to get voting rights on the networks where USDC is printed. So they're taking advantage of the dip to buy their stake. Anyway, go ahead, Rob.
Well, and Rob, actually, before you answer, Rob, over $1 billion was taken from leverage traders in 24 hours over the weekend. Over $1 billion. If you imagine the average retail bag size between $1,000 and $10,000, how many people were truly wrecked? People jump into those perp trades. They don't have the liquidation levels down low enough, and they get wiped out.
These things are going to still keep happening. This is just what the traders do, which would, I think, on your channel and probably Marty's channel, there's a lot of traders, and they're going to get into it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I know people will hear the same stance, which is you never sell your Bitcoin, you never sell this. But I mean, even altcoins are getting crushed, and whether that be leverage plays or not plays, just really how it is. And then if you take a look at who's in profit, I mean, almost everybody. And as long as you bought below, what is it, 101, 102, you're looking at 89% of people that are in profit. And at some point, those people have to take off a little bit off the table, and that's just how it goes. And if you take a look at also Bitcoin miners, I didn't know this, but I was taking a little research because of the questions that were being asked. And for up until April 2025, you saw a net, not an inflow into the net outflow for Bitcoin miners. Then all of a sudden in May 2025, you just saw a massive spike. And you take a look at that over at Glassnode.
Yep.
And they were transferring, because this is how it goes. Bitcoin miners have to keep the lights on. And when they're in profit, they're going to have to sell. That's pretty much just how it goes. So when we see this, I think it's a total of everything. People getting people shorting, people going long, and they get liquidated. And then on top of that, there's thin order books. And then on top of that, people want to take profits. And then here we are. The thing that surprises me, and we'll get into this a little bit later, the geopolitics that are going on as the bombing of Iran, those 3 nuclear sites, and then just take a look at the futures trading of oil. Didn't go up too much. Crypto got a little crushed yesterday, but it's doing a little bit of a recovery. And I think the S&P 500 opened up today at a positive. So I think people are pricing this in as potentially either not a war, but a short skirmish that'll be resolved hopefully quickly. I think that's one of the big things too.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of stuff to unpack there. You touched on many different issues. We have a long agenda. I don't know how much we'll get through. But first, I want to talk about one of the elements you mentioned. You mentioned Bitcoin miners. It was something very peculiar happened here. All right. We had a very big drop in the hash rate to the tune of about 15% over the weekend, which coincides directly with some of the stuff that was dropped on Iran. And that has a lot of people like myself perhaps thinking Iran is mining Bitcoin to be able to trade maybe oil for Bitcoin in the future, or maybe there's many nation states that are actually mining Bitcoin. We know that about 30 to maybe 40% of the hash rate globally is done by public miners, but the other 60% or more is done by, nation states like Bhutan and El Salvador and other places. Any thoughts on this big drop in the Bitcoin hash over the weekend? Anybody? Any theories?
Yeah,
do other nation states?
I actually posted about it. We were on the same thread, James. Exactly what you thought. We saw the hash rate drop and try to use critical thinking to work out why. So I did a little research, and it turns out Iran, most of their mining, which they used to own 4.5% of the global hash rate in 2021. I don't think people even aware of that. They were quite a mining power. It's gone down recently to around 3.1%, but it's owned almost entirely by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. So yeah, there is correlation. I mean, if you ask Grok, you'll see it'll tell you it doesn't think it's completely got to do with it, but if you look at the details, it's extremely coincidental.
Yeah,
that's the way I'll have to put it.
Hey James, what is that time frame that you got there for the drop?
The last 2 days, where it just dropped 15%. Yeah, so it's pretty bonkers. It's daily chart right here.
Came from 1,000 to 600. That's right.
Yeah, so it's a big drop, but it's unexplainable other than that literally the moment it happened was confluent with exactly what went down over the weekend.
Well, we all know that, that to evade sanctions, U.S. sanctions, Iran has publicly said they would use crypto. We know Russia has been trading commodities with crypto. So it's very likely that there were potentially mining units. We know they seized 265,000 mining units, Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, over the last years. So it's very interesting. I'm sure we'll learn more over the days coming.
You know, when Trump said he was going to make America the epicenter of Bitcoin digital assets, I never thought he would do it in a roundabout way such as that. Well, we'll bomb Iran and we'll shut down the hash rate, and then we'll open it up in America, and that's it. And I know that's going to trigger a lot of people. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Trump did that.
Well, let's switch gears so we don't get too triggering here. Let's talk about M2, the Bitcoin M2. M2 is around the globe is continuing to pop off as our global debt levels. As the debt rises, the money supply rises, everything kind of goes up in conjunction. But there is that lag between Bitcoin and M2. And if you forecast it out with a 112-day delay, Rob, if this pattern continues and the correlation is pretty tight, it's tune of 85 to 90%, we could get to $160,000 Bitcoin. Now, is that pure hopium, or do you believe in this theory? It's been a while since we caught up, so what do you think?
And if you overlay the M2 money supply on the S&P 500, it's lockstep. It makes a lot of sense. If you take a look at the global M2 money supply, there is a delay, and it's very true. And of course, this could play out. But I think just like Marty talked about, TA is dangerous. TA is almost worthless at this point. I think the best thing that traders could do is essentially go sign up for Truth Social and just take a look at what Trump tweets out, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I always say, keep your head out the window. Fundamentals first, but TA is excellent for timing trades. I believe, identifying support and resistance layers, etc. I've born and raised on it, so I'm a big believer. Marty, do you believe in TA?
I started trading. My trading career started with Tesla options, James. I don't know if you know that. I became I was a Tesla option trader, and I learned TA and soon got wrecked. I learned very fast in the beginning that this market is controlled by market makers. Same as option markets. It's all derivative based. It's a casino. When these big large institutions find an asset that they want, they put together their strategies, they work with market makers, and they know exactly how to do it. And they pick Bitcoin. We all know the rich love Bitcoin. It's the new bank vault. It's the new treasury. It's the new reserve. It's been taken over. I think the entire bear market was created by BlackRock. I think there's no coincidence that they timed and got approved an ETF at the bottom, and they built it back up to 100,000. And I think we're at the floor. I think 100,000 is now the floor, and they'll keep doing it. The interesting thing to watch is Circle. I mean, look at Circle. It's now at $278 today. It hasn't really given anyone an entry. And BlackRock said part of the IPO, they will get involved. I think they're involved. This is how it works. Is there any TA you can do on Circle? Have you seen the chart? It's just
its chart's only 2 weeks old, so that's a problem.
Right. So I think absolutely. I think global M2 is controlling the game. And M2 is modulated by other forces. There's no TA in M2 money supply, and I think Bitcoin is lined up with that. I think it's the same thing. I think it's going up with M2, and people are gambling on it. And the people that sell the bets will take back the money, the casino, and cause the small modulations and the large flushes in order to remove all the leverage. But it'll return back to M2. That's until that changes. That is the most evidence we have of a correlation. And I agree with you. The SPY is the same thing. Like everyone's going, how can the SPY be where it is with the Iran thing? How come futures opened up? What's going on? It doesn't make any sense. People, it's time to wake up to that. Okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for a reason. You've been gaslit with TA.
Yeah. And just real quick to add on one thing, I was making a little bit facetious. I don't think that TA is worthless. There are entry points and exit points. James, I got you. Marty, when he talks about this, you can see the correlation between two things. Now, TA sometimes doesn't work. So everybody, it'll be okay. Just do what you do best and do it.
Exactly. So for example, if you have crazy opportunities sometimes that drive the market. For example, what happened early 2025 in the United States with different attacks on different types of companies. And that has a huge impact on exactly what's going on as well. Anyway, Marty, you and I were chatting this morning about this, the Fiserv stablecoin on Solana from Matthew Barnes. This is, again, everywhere we look, we are seeing a lot of movement. And a shout out to the moderators in the channel. Tini does a show on DCA and everybody else. I forgot to say that. But this is crazy. We're seeing so much confluence, Rob and Marty, between TradFi jumping in to crypto in so many different ways. Tell us a bit about this Fiserv deal. You used to work at Fiserv.
Sure. Yeah, I was actually CTO of Fiserv. I don't know if people know that. Back in the Valley in my days, I came from South Africa. I was recruited by Oracle, and I went from Oracle, became Fiserv. Oracle spun off some of its product lines, specifically general ledger and insurance products, which was what we built in those days using the predecessor to blockchain, which was called CORBA, Common Object Request Broker Architecture. So we built distributed systems with Oracle databases to kind of simulate what blockchain does. It was before blockchain. And that was my career at Fiserv. But Fiserv builds custom software for companies, for institutions, using a toolkit and a framework which they develop in their R&D department. In those days, we built with Java, etc. Now, I'm still in touch with all my guys. It looks like they've picked Solana. So, and I mean, I've been pushing it on them for a while. So what does this mean? Okay. Solana has a Solana Policy Institute. Okay. It's created a new foundation, which sole goal is to push Solana into institutional and regulatory and government and policy making. And you've seen they were very much involved in the roundtables with David Sachs. And this is their first real win. Fiserv has 16,000 clients, everyone you use every day, from every insurance company, every state retirement fund, life insurance, car insurance, general ledgers all around the world. And it's all about integrating stablecoin, right? That's the game. The next big game is going to be how do traditional finance companies integrate stablecoin? Do they go through an intermediary? Do they use Shopify? Do they use Stripe? There's going to be new infrastructure middlemen popping up trying to seize, or they're going to go through the banks. Well, Fiserv has decided to go it alone. This is a huge thing. So this will be an integration of stablecoin at that level.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things you mentioned, Circle, what Circle has done, it's opened the floodgates to Wall Street to see how much money can be made from an IPO again. The IPO market was dead for the last 4 years. This just lit the fuse. Things are going to explode. Everybody is jumping on stablecoins. Everybody wants stablecoin. You mentioned Fiserv on Solana. Now, Wyoming, stablecoin committee. I didn't even know Wyoming had a stablecoin committee.
James, I posted about Wyoming making their own stablecoin 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. So it took them that long to get their act together. But now they're launching on Aptos and Solana. And Aptos is a blast from the past. I didn't think they were still around. But that was interesting, combination. So Rob, what do you think about the Genius Act, all the stablecoin stuff? How good is this for the space?
Well, it's, stablecoins, well, I've been talking about this for, months and months and months. And it's not about getting rich off the stablecoins as, for retail investors. It's about, the actual chains that are being built on it. And if you just take a look, and Visa even tracks this. There's a website, Visa Analytics. And you can see like the top ones are Ethereum, Tron, Binance, and Solana.
Yep.
So like if you take a look at this, it makes a lot of sense. Although I will say the US Wyoming Stablecoin Committee, they picked Aptos and Solana. I saw that. What is the major bank that's out there that has been a leader in the digital asset space? The
one in Wyoming with who's connected to some Senator Loomis or something like that.
Yeah,
Caitlin Long.
Caitlin Long.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and her bank.
Yeah.
They are trialing their own stablecoin, and for some reason, and she's pretty much a Bitcoin maximalist, they chose Ethereum, and they're still going through it. So it is interesting to see the dichotomy between the Wyoming Stablecoin Committee. They're choosing this, and then the bank with Caitlin Long, and they choose Ethereum, and which one's going to take over? Which one's going to be the big one?
Absolutely. I've got the post here. They passed SF0127. The post was from July 2024. So Wyoming passed the ability to have their own stablecoin in 2024. They're so early. This is Senator Loomis. And I agree with you. They originally they piloted on Ethereum, and they've switched to Aptos and Solana. Another interesting move.
Yeah. And it's funny because, Rob, so much is happening in Texas right now. It's not only the center of Bitcoin mining, it's also the center of autonomous driving. It's the center for the new Bitcoin SBR. I heard that your state is going to put $250 million into Bitcoin very soon. Is that true?
Apparently that is true. Abbott signed the law into existence. The sad part, though, is I thought we'd be first. And I had no idea that we're going to get crunched by New Hampshire and Arizona. For some reason, those two states beat us, and we came in third. And for Pete's sakes, I mean, one of our senators is mining Bitcoin. Ted Cruz mines Bitcoin, and we couldn't get that law stuck through Congress into Abbott's desk. So, yeah, it looks like it's a pretty good thing for Texas. I'm glad they finally did it. But, I mean, we should be the epicenter. And, of course, we have a lot of Bitcoin miners here, and kind of, showing them that how you can actually use electricity in a stable way, also scale back when things are actually needed. And you can actually have a whole economy around that in small cities around Texas. So it's one of the leaders.
And it's bringing money to rural areas as well. So it's completely fantastic all around. And then your governor, Abbott, is brilliant. I mean, there's not many governors. Actually, there's probably none I can say that about in this country. But Abbott is a smart guy. Very smart guy.
Has a vision.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about some crazy, sad news. And I must say, I have the utmost respect for Adam Back. But Adam Back from Blockstream, he actually developed a piece of code about 15 or 18 years ago that is was instrumental for Satoshi in building Bitcoin. You probably remember that little piece, Marty. But this is crazy. Adam Back says altcoin season is over. Time to rotate into Bitcoin treasuries. I've been in Bitcoin treasuries since the year 2020. But it's interesting that these Bitcoin OGs are now telling people to FOMO into Bitcoin treasuries. Rob, have you had any exposure to Bitcoin treasuries over You've heard me till I'm blue in the face talking about MicroStrategy since the early days, but have you ever jumped down that path? And do you think AltSeason is over?
Well, two things. Like, I bought MicroStrategy as well. I thought it was, I'll just throw a little money in there, see what happens. Did a lot better than a lot of my alts, just saying. Yeah. And then coming into and I haven't gotten anything else. I haven't gotten into MetaPlanet or anything, outside of that. But as far as like AltSeason, I think that the AltSeason of 2021 and 2017, those times I think are not going to come back because people got screwed over so bad on a lot of different alts, specifically meme coins. And I think they realized that, hey, a lot of these, even though they say there's utility and there's function, they actually are all meme coins. So I think now you have to be more precise, and you have to do a lot more research into which ones will actually pop off. And I've said before, just take a look at the chains that are being built on for USDC and Tether in the top 10 by market cap. Just take a look at those chains, see which ones has the most transactions and volume, and maybe delve into that area. But as far as like altcoin season, as everything pops off, no. There's going to be some outliers like Fartcoin and stuff like that, but that's just, I think, a little bit too crazy for me.
Yeah. Super interesting. And so AltSeason then is not over as far as you're concerned, Rob. You just believe it's select names will still pump.
Well, unless, because right now we talked about payments, right?
Mm.
And stable coins. Unless Bitcoin starts to go back into what it was originally designed for, which is peer-to-peer transactions, and it takes over that types of market. Now, I know Arduino, the CEO of Tether, had talked about putting Tether onto Bitcoin. But as far as the transaction layer for that, that's great. But how are you going to make that layer? I guess for the settlement layer, sure. But as far as like Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer transaction, I know people talk about it and they love it. But why would you do that if you have to pay capital gains tax on every transaction that you do?
Yeah.
So for me, I just think to myself, unless Bitcoin can pull it off, yeah, perhaps. I know people will say, well, Lightning Network. Okay, again, same thing with capital gains and such. I still see as payments as being one of the big things, especially if you don't look at it through the lens of like an American like I do, and look at it at different countries. They need stable coins. They need it backed by the US dollar and treasuries because their fiat gets devalued, and it makes sense.
It's funny you mentioned that because emerging markets, they use Circle and Solana to move micropayments. We're talking about moving $1, $5 all the time. So not all the big money flows on USDC and Circle, but the number of transactions far exceeds Tron, Ethereum, etc. because of all these little microtransactions. Marty, party, all season over. What do you think about Adam Back, the legend?
Yeah, I've never really believed in an AltSeason. I've never really bought into that narrative. I think that was an Ethereum narrative. Look, Ethereum has competition. Ethereum is kind of stuck in the middle. Is it a store of value? Is it an execution layer? It's not very good at either. Layer 2s, they're centralized. Coinbase has one server running the entire base L2. Come on, guys, let's be serious. So I think what's happened is no one saw a year ago these treasury companies being the next meme coin season, right? I think this came out of nowhere. These companies, they're playing the meme coin game. I mean, they're regulated stock, so they have all the checkpoints that an institutional or a boomer investor is looking for. They're regulated by the ACC. They've got a little bit more of a rail, and so they're playing the meme game. They're popping up every day. These are like dead companies that are announcing a Bitcoin or a Solana or a hype strategy, buying some and then pumping, and people are exiting the top of the pump and playing the 0.6 Fibonacci and buying there. It's just like meme coins, and no one saw this coming. So I think it's kind of disrupted a little bit about the cycle. Obviously, it's disrupted the cycle, pushed it back a little bit. But in my opinion, I don't really believe in an AltSeason. I think there's 5 major chains that'll survive. And until we get market structurable and actual, regulated security tokens where a company can issue, with a board and a business plan, can issue a token that represents equity in their company and pay dividends, we're not really going to see true crypto, securities. I think we got to wait for market structurable. Until then, we have the major L1 networks, and those are the ones, exactly what Rob said. If you want to know the ones that are going to survive, it's the ones that USDC and USDT are printing on. Those are the ones, guys. I mean, wake the hell up already. You can go on Circle's transparency website. You can go on Tether's blockchain website. They list them there. You can see the issuance, and those are the ones that are going to dominate. That's your altcoin season, is getting to those now, because they've just been flushed heavily. I mean, Bitcoin got flushed. Ethereum got flushed to 2180. Solana got flushed, not as bad, to 128. This is when you get in those guys, the stablecoin bearing L1s. The Bitcoin treasuries, I think it's like meme coins. If you didn't get in the beginning, and I've been following this, like I watch it as they hit the SEC, as they announce, and you buy there and you sell the first pump, just like a meme coin. Then you wait for a 50% pullback. You buy again. You wait for the 0.61. You sell there. These are not long-term holds necessarily. It's a trader's world, and I think it's just TradFi wanting to get into that and play that game. So we'll see how it goes. I think a lot of them will die along the way if they can't produce yield. And what I find interesting is the treasury companies that are buying things like Solana and Hype and Sui, like this Lion Group, Soul Strategies, DeFi Development Corporation, Galaxy Digital is an interesting one. They're accumulating the stablecoin bearing L1s in their treasury, because then they can create incredible yield, which, you know, Bitcoin, we love it to death. It's a great store of value, but generating yield on Bitcoin is still a work in progress, how to do it in a regulatory climate.
Yeah,
these other ones,
yeah,
minute stablecoins pass, James, they're going to start making money hand over fist.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ethereum. There was a very interesting chart that popped up on my radar on Friday, and that was all-time record taker sell volume spiked. On Friday, somebody knew something was going to go bad with Ethereum. It was trading about 2,500 at the time. It tanked very quickly, $1,000 to 2,400. Now, over the weekend, it was hit 2,200 or even less. But somebody knew to take profits, and they were all short-term holders, traders on Ethereum, and they ditched it all on Friday. Do you think they knew what was going to happen at the weekend?
Absolutely not. No, there's no inside information. What are you talking about, James? That's
well,
ridiculous.
it was a record taker sell volume dump that's never happened before. And if you do track the flights, a lot of people did predict what was going to happen at the weekend. There was 10 days of saber rattling. There was, you know, all these big air tankers that carry fuel across the Atlantic. There were B2s taking off. I know, Marty, you're tracking a lot of the flight action. All the signs were there on the tea leaves that something was going to happen. Marty, you agree?
I mean, I use my methodology. Ethereum, when they had that Bybit hack, and they had the Bybit hack was on the 2nd of February, and then whether it was a hack or whatever the hell, they started dumping it, and they took Ethereum all the way down to 1,400 on April 8th, and then people started to long, right? These thinking they got forever positions. And a lot of them did at low leverage. There's liquidation levels down to 1,100, 1,200. But it pumped back up to 2,500, 26, 27, 28. Now, if you go do the 50% pullback, which I believe, along with liquidation levels, I think the market makers will pump the price of a crypto and then pull it back 50%. If you go do the 50% on Ethereum between 7th of May, and we're pumped up to the top at 2,800, 50% is exactly 2,140. What price did Ethereum come down to? Very fast. 2,140.
Yeah, 2,120. Wow. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, crazy.
It's run by the exchanges. They know what they're doing. They have the players. They have the team. That's what they do, and they love the retail narratives, right? I always say price makes narrative.
Yeah.
Rob, people will find 1,000 reasons why it went up and 1,000 reasons why it went down.
Just, I'll say this. Yeah, just listen to you guys talk about, tracking the prices and going here and going there and being in and out. It sounds super stressful. Like, I don't know how many people in the comment section are traders like you guys, but man, I don't think that I could be awake for that all the time. It just sounds like I'm trying to de-stress my life, reduce my cortisol levels, and I just buy and hold until things go crazy. Yeah.
I find it a rush. In fact,
I'm undateable. I'm undateable.
On that note, Rob, I did notice some of your tweets over the weekend and late last week were quite bearish. You said, "That's it, folks. Time to pack your bags and go home. Bull market over." Words to that effect. Are you out? How much profit taking have you done? Do you not believe this bull market will continue at least till October 2025? Or are we dead?
No. Like on my account on X, it's pretty much for fun. It's not like, hey, you should sell at these price points, this price points. It was just, it was tongue in cheek, because every black swan event, which seems like there's a black swan event every time, or people blow it out to be, that you'll just see massive negativity, and there's no more negative place than X. So when I put that in, I think that the next post, I think, was something like, "It's going to be all right. You're going to be just fine. Just stick around. You're in the right place at the right time." But yeah, I put these things out just to kind of make fun of a little bit of the negativity that's out there. And like, look, remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, February 2022? I think we were actually doing a show. It was me, you, and Ben. Yeah. And then we heard about it. And then all of a sudden, you sell, or you buy the invasion, you sell the recovery, and everything was fine, right? And it went over 2 years, but that was supposed to be World War III. And then we had Pakistan with India, and that was going to be World War III, and that didn't happen. And now we're going to have the next World War III, Iran and Israel and America. And it looks like the markets are pricing that in a little bit differently. So like, I just take a look at them like, I think it's going to be just fine. Just stick around.
Exactly. And either way, historically, if you go back 100 years, what happens when war happens? The money printers go into high gear. Markets go up. That's just the nature of the world. And it's a terrible thing to say. But anyway, let's talk about one thing that I always admired you, Rob, for too, is helping people be very aware of scams. I've seen a massive uptick, not only in the number of scams. I've heard of people being hit by 2 or 3 separate scammers in the same day, where they're competing against each other for people's Bitcoin or crypto or whatever else. But also phishing has gotten much more sophisticated. This one just popped out, Trezor compromise. And of course, it's the headline that says Trezor compromise, but no, it's a phishing scam. Auto support reply system, etc. They send fake support emails. No breach account occurred, but I know people that get the Coinbase scam emails. They don't even have a Coinbase account. They're just sending these everywhere. And all they need is that 0.001% to convert, and then they're good. They make their money back. But then we have another situation, not just media is also getting hacked. And we've seen a lot of X accounts getting hacked too, but hackers breached Cointelegraph here as well. Confirmed a front-end hack was used to publish a fake token airdrop on a coin market cap or something breach. And CZ, I think he owns Cointelegraph, if I'm not mistaken, and he warned people as well. And a lot of people lost $250 million in just May alone in these scams. $250 million. Now, my rule is simple. How to not get scammed is don't give anything to anybody. Rule number 1. What is your top rule, Rob? What would you advise people?
Everything's a scam until proven otherwise. That's it's one of my 5 rules I have on every one of my videos. It's underneath my little box of the video. But I will just say, like we talked about this, is sometimes, or a lot of times, the less you do, the more you make. And it seems like, I know people are out there and they want to trade this, and they want to farm that, and they want to get into this yield, and they're all over the place. But sometimes, as far as like hacks, the most successful investors so far have been hackers. They put no money into it, and all they have to do is just find one sucker, and there's no shortage of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the best investor right now are the hacking pieces of trash who have wiped out billions of dollars, and it's going to keep happening more and more, and especially as we accelerate and try to do more and more in this space. So I always just say, everything's a scam until proven otherwise. If you are unsure of anything, it's very simple. If it's something that you can, you have a link, you have a post, you're not unsure, just paste in a ChatGPT or Grok and say, is this a scam? It'll tell you exactly what it is. And then the next thing is just to ignore, like you say, James, just to ignore as much as you possibly can, and just not interact with anything. Even like me, there was a story of a guy. He was been in the crypto space for 7-8 years, and his friend's Telegram account got hacked. Reached out to him, hey, we need to talk about this deal that's going through. He said, oh, this is Jimmy, and I know him. And they went on a Zoom call, and it was Jimmy and his friend right there on 2 other people, and they say, oh, we can't hear you. Can you just download Zoom again, and we'll get this going. Download Zoom, and of course, what did he have? He got his hot wallets hacked. Which, what a moron! If you're keeping a lot of your investments into a hot wallet, you're going to get screwed. So that happened. They talked as it was going through like it was nothing, and I guess they used some type of AI for generation, because the video went off and the audio was there. So the chances, it's not if, it's when. And even as smart as everybody else is here on the show and in the chats, you're going to have those days when it's like, I'm just off today. I'm tired. I'm sick. I don't want to do things. And then that's the one you get when you get screwed over. So I always say those things. And the last thing I'll say is diversification of devices. I have multiple ledgers. I have multiple tangems. And I also do custodial services with iTrust. And those are where I go through, because my friend a friend of mine lost $2.2 million, his entire life savings in a hack.
Wow.
And older gentleman, and what do you do when you're in your 60s and you lost your entire life savings, and it was all in crypto?
Yeah, I've heard so many stories. I heard somebody like $3.5 million. It was a lady who was taken by one of those Coinbase scams, and they said, "Oh, we're going to send you this link to protect your money." And of course, you know, she was in her 60s. She clicks on the link and then goes to her Coinbase account. It's empty, and the guy's still on the phone. "Oh yeah, we have everything now. Thank you. Click, bye." And I actually had one of the scammers on a phone. We did a 45-minute conversation, and it was hilarious. I completely wrapped him around the wheel. But I just for everybody should listen to that video and learn. Not only these are like kind of like MBA educated white American professionals. They're no longer call centers in Pakistan or somewhere like that. They are here on the ground or in your nation state. Marty, what would you advise people to not get phished or hacked as a technologist?
Yeah, I mean, I've run a community now for 4 years, I'd say, and it's always been the same thing. I mean, I blame, first of all, there's been very little education on crypto, and I think it's part of the strategy started by Elizabeth Warren and Choke Point and Gary Gensler, was to purposefully not educate people and let them get scammed so that crypto looks bad as part of their banking agenda. And if you want to blame someone, blame them. At the end of the day, you know, we've been educating people for 4 years, and a basic education in crypto will save you a lot of money. These are the basic rules. Respect every click. Every click in crypto, think twice, double check, grok it, paste it, double check the contract address. Every click, respect every click. That's the number one rule. Don't just click things. In fact, never click anything.
Yes.
There's a good rule. Okay.
Yeah.
Second rule of crypto, use a checking and a saving strategy. Have a ledger hardware wallet with your savings of your crypto. Never touch it. Bury it in your garden. That's your savings. For your day-to-day messing around, if you want to trade, if you want to, you know, experiment, make a hot wallet. And you can make as many hot wallets as you want. Move a little bit of value in there. Mess around with that. Understand that at any moment you can click the wrong thing and lose everything. So once you get these two principles of wallet management and respecting clicks, you're much better off. I think most phishing scams are people that don't know these things, and they come from Web 2. I mean, you've got to look at my mother. She's a baby boomer. She'll click anything you put on her screen. She'll click anything, every pop-up, everything. Okay, this is the mentality that was taught to us by Web 2, and it drifted into Web 3. And if people aren't educated, they make the same mistakes. It's so easy to phish people. And like you said, I mean, I've been in technology my whole life. As technology evolves, so do the hackers. So do the hackers.
As the value of crypto goes up, the hacker game evolves too. That's the big.
As the value goes up, the hackers get better. They're right behind us, even ahead of us. And so you have to always be wary that, you know, are you buying the real thing? Is this the real website? And things like that. And once you learn that and you get that, it's not hard. It's basically a part of self-sovereignty. You know, you have to take on the responsibility of your financial destiny. And part of that is to become a banker. Respect everything. Understand you are protecting your own wealth. There's no support desk in crypto. You are the support desk. So start like that. Be very rigid, very disciplined, very conservative with your movements. And if you want to mess around and do a lot of clicking and do a lot of trading, you know, make a little shitcoin wallet. Make a little trading wallet. Don't trade on your master wallets and your ledgers.
No,
just
never.
hide it in the garden. Don't trust it.
Rob, what do you think? What do you think about the ETFs? BlackRock hitting 70 billion in 14 months. Is that way beyond your expectations? And do you trust? A lot of people are getting very suspicious now. Is it paper Bitcoin? Of course it's not. But what do you think of that evolution? Because, you know, people complain. Let's tackle one issue first, because I have a hard time with this, and I laugh it off. But Bitcoin's at $102,000.
Wow.
And people are very sad. They're very sad. They want $1 million Bitcoin because they heard Samson Mao saying it'd be $1 million in 12 months a year ago. But we would be probably somewhere around 65,000 if it wasn't for the Bitcoin ETFs, maybe even lower. What do you think of this institutionalization of Bitcoin and crypto? And we have Sol ETFs coming probably very soon, which is going to which could kick off an AltSeason, I believe. But what do you think of all of this TradFi into crypto? Good or bad?
I mean, it's obviously good for our bags. Let's just be honest, because without ETFs, it gives us that push to say, okay, well, now that you've got the BlackRocks of the world and you've got the ARK investments and all those people that are coming in, now you are legitimate. So with that right there, it's great. Unfortunately, you'll hear the opposite of people will say, well, this wasn't the entire reason for the creation of Bitcoin. If you look at the white paper, because of the new technology, it's supposed to be peer-to-peer transaction. This is ETFs. I don't want to get into that debate. I will just say that it's good for us, and it's just like all technology over time. Do you think that when man, tens of thousands of years ago, discovered iron ore, they'd realize, oh, we can make a building out of this, or a rocket, or we can make anything with steel? They have no idea. They just made it as like a shield or an arrow tip or something like that. Technology moves over time, and it fits to what people need it to be most. And right now, it is a better store of value than anything. A little bit.
And even the Plan B news, I had a theory back in, I think it was March or April 2024, that I believed, because there were long-term holders, like wallets that hadn't moved for 6, 7, 8 years, and they were selling before the Bitcoin halving. And I was like, why are they doing that? And then I had a theory that they were converting their old spot Bitcoin into ETFs for safety because they didn't trust cold storage anymore, because maybe they were getting older, etc., or wanted to leave something to their families. And then Plan B came out about 2 months ago and said, yep, that's what he did. So what do you think of the conversion from cold storage, long-term bag holders with very low cost basis? Now they're looking to manage risk and safety in the ETF. Is that crazy or good?
It's good. Well, it's not good for the bags. It's good for safety reasons. I did the exact same thing. I'm crazy, right? Here's why. Coinbase had a hack. All the information, not all the information. They say it's only 4.1% of people. Those hackers that got the information, it's not just your name, your date of birth, which everybody has now because of the Google and Apple app. They know your name, they know your address, they know the last 4 of your social, they know your banking account. Also, they know your address. So, and because of that hack, they know exactly how much you have bought over all the years. Do you think I want someone to know my address with the tens of billions? I'm just kidding. A good amount of crypto that I bought? No. And I will tell you this: when I was at the Bitcoin conference, one of the guys who I work with at a company, he said, "Yeah," he goes, "I get emails every so often with a picture of my house, and they say, send us this amount of Bitcoin or else." I go, "How often does that happen?" He's like, "It's every 2 weeks, but it's always like a rotating email address." I go, "It's your house?" He goes, "Yeah, they just use Google Maps,
Street View.
Yeah, Street View, and they sent it to me." I'm like, "How do they know that?" He's like, "Obviously the hack. I use Coinbase." So like for me, I'm not sticking around for that. I put that out. I went through iTrust, which they use Coinbase, which is the same one as MicroStrategy and BlackRock for my custody services. Not all of it, but a good chunk of it. Because I am not, and people say, well, just have a gun, bro. Look, the last big wrench attack was a guy who parked in the driveway, went up to the door and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, my man. I actually accidentally run into your driveway or something like that. Come out here and we'll exchange insurance information." He came out, 5 guys, masks, took him in. I want to say it was Chicago, or it wasn't France. Took him in. New York, was it? Somewhere around there. And he's gone. So unless you're going to the door every single time, locked and loaded, and going, "Hey, is that the pizza guy, or is that a wrench attack?" You got to think about what's safe for you. And again, this isn't everybody, but for me, I think about that a lot. So that's what I did.
Scary. Well, this is very interesting and very shocking too. But yeah, paranoia is also important. It was a big part of me playing MicroStrategy as well, because of the optionality and the accretion of sats per share and stuff. That had me very intrigued in the early days. But also cold storage. I don't trust myself very much with cold storage. even though I do have a little bit, but I can't even touch it. It's in a completely different state. Anyway, Marty, any quick thoughts on these ETFs and how they are so successful and some of the moves by some of the famous long-term holders?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points I'd like to make. First of all, crypto was invented to remove intermediaries. Okay. Yeah. The first principles of blockchain were to put value and ownership directly in the hands of the human being. There's money, which is your production, your work, your effort, your life energy. There's ownership, which is the things you've accumulated and own. And then there's you. And TradFi, since Bretton Woods, pretty much layered an entire industry of middlemen between the value, the ownership, and you. And they created this construct and culture around that. With blockchain, you don't need any of it. You don't need banks. You don't need insurance companies. You don't need anything. It's all redundant. Okay. You don't need payment operators. So it's an extremely disruptive technology. You have to understand it pretty much attacks banking, insurance, law, everything that we consider to be part of the fabric of society will be disrupted by blockchain. So there's going to be some pushback. Okay, first of all, people have to understand that. And it'll take some time before these people learn. We've learned, they will learn. So the first thing they've done is they said, ooh, we have value. We need to store our value. Let's use Bitcoin. That's what it was made for. Let's lock it up. Let's have our users come to Bitcoin through us. They've become intermediaries. And that's fine. Now, because personally, I think that a buyer and a holder of crypto that has a business plan, clients, and a long-term strategy is better than a buyer of crypto that comes in to make dollars into more dollars through crypto, because they buy crypto, they trade a meme coin, they sell the meme coin, they sell the crypto back to dollars. Their strategy is to raise more dollars with crypto. And they're fickle, and that's why you get a lot of volatility. These ETFs, they're very different. They're using it for what it was intended for, they're wrapping it up, they're holding it, and they have a long-term plan. So they're not just going to sell it when there's a war. They're not just going to sell it when there's a red candle. They're a more sticky holder. That's what I call it. And so that's actually good. Go ahead.
Challenging to that, of the top 20 hedge funds on the planet, 14 of them do trade the carry trade with the ETF, and they do move in volume in and out. So when they get nervous, right, you see big dumpage, but a good chunk of it is those kind of retirement players. But let's get to a couple more quick topics. Let's borrowing against Bitcoin, strategy or gamble. Rob, we've been through crazy times. We've seen crazy poop happen. But now, for the first time, I've always waited for like a Fidelity or a Cantor or a big Wall Street firm to come in, maybe even a Coinbase almost, if you trust those guys, to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin. This changes the game, though, from a number of reasons. One, obviously, that's what the wealthy do. They borrow against their assets. They don't sell their assets, and they write off the interest on the amount that they borrow. But this really does change the game for Bitcoin. But for you, you've been around the block. You've seen it all. What do you think about some of the latest players right now? And what would you do? What would you tell the audience to do? And would you borrow against your Bitcoin rather than sell it for your lifestyle chips?
Nobody wants to hear sex from aversion. So unless you've done some lending on Bitcoin, please refrain from telling me what to do. So I will just say this. I had Simon Dixon on, and we talked specifically about this. And I said, it makes sense because this is the kind of cash flow that you'd like. And this is what rich people do, is what Jeff Bezos does and everybody else does. As far as rich people, let's just take some of that money out and use it to start to buy things. And as I was talking to Simon, and it was a really great interview, he just said, it's not so much, he goes, I don't trust the leaden companies. I don't trust the other new companies that are out there. It's the companies behind the companies. There is an incentive, and it's true, for you to default on your Bitcoin payments because they want your Bitcoin. He goes, so what he says is, and it rings true, is a lot of people are going to screw this up, and they're going to take loans out when euphoria hits, which is when, you know, we start to go up even higher. And then they're going to take 50% or 40% or whatever else it is, and they're going to get margin called because they don't have enough. That's, I think, going to be roughly the majority of people. And then that Bitcoin is going to get absorbed. And again, it's the companies behind the companies that do this, that want this. So if you're going to do this, I'm not going to do it. I've already paid my dues. I'm not going to do it. And it makes sense. There's good cash flow there. I get you. But it would have to be 10%, 20% or lower of your entire Bitcoin stash to take the money out. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, when I take the money out, and you know, what am I going to do with that money? Where is the yield? Where is the cash flow going to come from? Am I going to do it into real estate? I can tell you right now, I've been doing real estate for 2 decades. It's tough out there. Even if you're doing short-term or long-term rentals, and we're going to get into Section 8 and stuff like that, it's difficult. Are you going to get into other crypto? We're going to put into altcoins. Which altcoin is going to be? You going to make it? The thing is again, sometimes you do less, you make more. And for me, I understand where this comes from. I personally won't do it. Good luck to anybody who does.
Yeah, it's so funny. I love that. Do less, you get more. I know people that have had things like Costco stock, like a plumber that works with me. He used to work at Costco, like just packing shelves 20 years ago. He now has nearly $1 million. And he was only there for a short period of time. I know people who work at Home Depot, and they just held these stocks for 20, 30 years and become multimillionaires. It's insane. So I do like that. Sometimes, you know, I go through seasonality of what I call my money market. You know, 2017 to 2021, that was Bitcoin. Then it became MicroStrategy. Now it's Tesla. And that becomes the place where I park money, where there's no downside, but that's where I park money forever. Don't rotate it, at least in some cases. But that is such an interesting perspective. Less is more. That's the big takeaway, audience. By the way, links below for these guys. Don't forget to follow Rob. He's a scholar and a gentleman as well. Marty, what do you think? Borrowing against Bitcoin, is the industry mature enough yet? Would you ever do it? And what would you advise the audience without giving advice?
You know, I'm kind of a pro that. I believe that Bitcoin as hard money is the best collateral there is. There's never been better collateral. I think bear market, the spread of bear markets will shrink as we go through the super cycle until it's barely volatile at all, much like the SPY. So I think, you know, anybody that's been through crypto from the early days and has experienced the volatility in the bear markets is always going to preach that there'll be another bear market. And I just think there won't be another bear market like we've seen before. They'll shrink, and Bitcoin spread will, you know, Bitcoin will become less volatile. It'll only go up as a store of value. It's hard money. I think that you're going to see Bitcoin bonds blossom. I think the governments of the world are already doing Bitcoin bonds. I had Mike Cagney on the space of Figure Markets. I mean, you can't believe the things they're doing right now. They're already doing it all. It's already happening. But bonds are a big thing. I'm a big believer. Would I do it personally? No, I'm a more grassroots guy. I buy Bitcoin. I hold Bitcoin on a ledger. I don't need to wrap it in a treasury company. I don't need to lend against it. I'm holding Bitcoin, my guys, and I'll decide what I do next down the road once we see more regulatory clarity on these things. But in my opinion, I think that Bitcoin bonds will probably be part of the US government and the Treasury. I think they're going to, their strategy involves Bitcoin bonds. Scott Bessent has been very clear about that. They're going to raise this asset price, lock it down as regulation, eliminate any bad actors, and they're going to get out of debt using Bitcoin. And part of it is to bolster the Treasury market, which, you know, this is trust. It's cryptographic trust. That's what Bitcoin is. US trust has gone down. Bitcoin will bring it back. That's the way it's going to work.
But the trust is also with the risk that, you know, of holding that little key that could be worth 7 digits. That's the piece that makes some people nervous, including myself and Rob. So, Rob, you hit on something, Marty, which leads us into this other story. Rob, are you a believer in Bitcoin supply crunch? If there is, we heard about the Texas SBR. What happens if the US government tries to buy 1 million Bitcoin? And we know there's at least 2 other sovereigns on the planet that are stacking Bitcoin right now. And we know that Iran was mining Bitcoin. Could there be a supply crunch What is your take on this? And we know as price goes up, people will take lifestyle chips, but at the same time, it's a very scarce asset. Thoughts?
It makes sense. I will refer to Tom Lee as he came out on MSNBC and said, there's going to be a supply crunch. It's definitely going to happen. And I can see it happening within the next 10 years. And that's it. Because the supply crunch, I've heard about that since 2017. I've heard about a lot of things and it hasn't come true. So the supply crunch, it is inevitable. I'm just not going to tell you when, because I am just guessing in the wind. I have no idea.
Good take. But I look at the OTC desks, and in 3.5 weeks, they were halved. So there's now 115,000 Bitcoin left. If somebody comes in and tries to buy it all, and imagine the treasuries and the Bitcoin treasuries pop new ones every single day, and they all try to stack Bitcoin, it could get interesting and spicy. Well, we're nearly at the hour. Don't forget, everybody, subscribe to these brilliant gentlemen or watching their channels or whatever. And I do love your poop posting on X as well, Rob. It's hilarious. But I do want to talk about one thing, because we are living in this very strange time. And I am extremely obsessed with all things AI. I believe there are two narratives, AI and crypto, and people need to be exposed to those. Rob, you and I spoke before we went live, and you said you were concerned that people didn't have exposure to both. You want to elaborate a bit on this? And what does it mean for the future? What does the world look like in 2 to 5 years for us?
I think it's like the typewriter repairman who's been in business for 20 years. Then some new technology comes over and he's like, well, I gotta pivot. If I don't pivot, I'm out of a job. And that works out okay. And then you can take a look at this alt technology. Even the internet, when it came about, I'm old enough to remember when there was no internet. And then there was new jobs that were created there. But I'm worried about AI because I look at the jobs that are there, and I don't think we need a lot of people to do those jobs. Take a look at legal. Take a look at any kind of marketing. Take a look at novels and writers. And for Pete's sakes, take a look at the crappy movies that have been put out and how much better some of these AI movies are. I think unless people start to really embrace AI and work it, it's going to be very difficult. Now, on the flip side of that, I will say, I live in Puerto Rico. Great place, greatest place ever. And there is a huge shortage of electricians, plumbers, construction. And not only is there a huge shortage of those guys and gals, it's also a shortage of like good plumbers, electricians, and construction workers. AI ain't taking that job over anytime soon. So I take a look at the people, like I talked to my grandson. I'm like, hey, what's so big in school? What are you leaning towards? And he's like, computer programming. I'm like, ooh, wait, I think there's something else out there. So I just look at it and I see that maybe there's other jobs that will be created with AI. I mean, robot repair for sure. And then of course, I mean, you're not going to do away with coders, but you're going to do away with low-level coders that don't need to be there. So I look at it and I say, if you don't invest into, let's just say it. If you don't invest into assets and or AI, it's going to be a very rocky next 10 years for you. And that's why we're always preaching invest into assets.
Yeah, very, very, very good point. So, a lot of people like myself believe we can hedge our future by investing in both crypto and AI as a protection. It's a life raft, always has been. Marty, we know you know this stuff deep. A lot of people are doom posting AI doomers that everybody will be out of a job in 2 years. I know some lawyers that are very nervous. Accountants, I think they could be impacted. I do know that people that write for a living are heavily impacted. What do you think of this? Is it really going to be as bad as we think? Is AI learning 10x better every 4 to 6 months? What's your take?
I believe that all low IQ jobs will be eliminated by AI. There will be a UBI, universal basic income. It won't be in the form of cash. It'll be in the form of like food stamps. Everything will be just subsidized by the government for low IQ people. I think we're facing a liberal drama where it's been politically incorrect to talk about IQ and everybody's equal. Well, they're not. Nature is not equal. It never has been fair. This is life. You can blame, but the reality is the reality. Anybody that's blaming and worried about AI should just get it together and adapt and learn. All low IQ jobs will be gone. Okay, not now, not in 5 years, in 20 years. Okay, you've got time. The only jobs left will be high IQ jobs. Everything else will be done by AI and automation. And the remaining population.
There's an interesting question here. Anybody taking legal advice from AI? And the answer is, I think in Dubai, where did I see it? Dubai now have a AI judge that's working within the court system. I think it's an experiment, a test, or whatever. But I said this once, and people lost their minds. But I would rather have an AI judge than a corrupt judge adjudicating over a case. At least a truth-seeking AI, if that exists.
Crypto and AI, it's all about truth. It's all about digital truth. Yep, absolutely.
Verifiability as well. Well, that was people love the discussion, Rob. People love your shows. The LAX guy as well, big fan here. A lot of people know you anyway. There's always cross-pollination between our different channels. I want to thank you for joining us. Let's not be strangers. Let's do more of this as well. A lot to talk about, and you're very based, I think, is the word they use in your perspective on the market and profit taking and being conservative. And of course, less is more. That's the big win today. Do less, just hold or not. Wait till profit taking, and then
that's right. There's a lot to do outside of the screens. You just got to get out there and do it. And that's what life's for. This is what crypto is giving us. It's giving us freedom. It's not about chaining ourselves. It's about going, oh, I have this. Now I can do this stuff I really want to do. So that's it.
Exactly. Like learn to be an electrician in Puerto Rico. I should fix the grid.
I'm telling you, I need a job. This is it.
Get your grandson on it. Put a little belt on and send them out there in a van. Marty, any closing thoughts for the week? We've been through a rough weekend. Crypto normally does well on the weekends. We got hammered, but today, I mean, it's like nothing happened at the weekend. You got Tesla up nearly 11% at one stage a few minutes ago.
300.
Circle
is 300.
Yeah.
Now,
Circle is the most bonkers thing.
Yeah,
bonkers thing I've ever seen. But it shows you.
Like I say, I'm a bull. I see these things as opportunities. I love dips. Bring it on, man. Buy the lower liquidation levels. Accumulate, because the markup is coming any day now.
So you're still steadfast bullish for the rest of the year, or at least?
I've never been more bullish. Look at crypto; it barely even broke 100,000 during a World War III narrative. For God's sake,
that's a very good point.
Ultimate test. Arthur Hayes, if you're listening, you called it as well. This is the ultimate test of crypto once again. If you're not convinced now, what will convince you? This is not going away. This is the next. This is the future.
And in fairness, though, actually, I'll kick this to Rob, given Marty's extreme bullishness. If Circle IPO is a canary in the mine, that's got to make you bullish.
Yeah, you know what make me bullish is if another exchange like, I don't know, Kraken does an IPO, and you can get into something really like that. Now we're talking.
OKX just announced it yesterday. OKX is going IPO in the USA.
There you go.
Yeah. And it's funny. Does anybody here, Rob, do you miss Gary Gensler?
I miss the memes. I have to admit. I miss that whole part. And I miss making fun of one centralized figure. So, now we've only got Elizabeth Warren, and that's no fun. We need a tandem.
By the way, Rob, I've got a photographic memory. Did you change the back wall color of your pool area?
Yeah, I told the guys at Fiverr to color this. And then I put this as my green screen, and boom, here we are.
No, but has the color scheme changed, or is it just different lighting?
No, it did change. My wife's like, we should paint this and color this. I'm like,
yeah, I was trying to say it looks different. Swap out the green screen, and everybody, it's a real pool. People always make fun of him for that, and he's got multiple pools, multiple places.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I mean, as much as that sounds great, if I would have put that money into Bitcoin, I'd be up, I don't know, 10, 20, 30x, something like that. So if everybody thinks that real estate's the answer, trust me, from someone who's been there, I think you might do a little better on some harder apps.
We could have a whole conversation on that. Right now, we know that the younger generation are struggling to get their first castle. As I say, it's very much out of reach, but they should wait. They should, I say, without giving financial advice, hold crypto and AI for the next 3 years and then take some profit and then buy a castle.
Yes.
That would be the cyclical play that I would recommend. Thank you, gentlemen. Great show. Really appreciate you stepping in, Rob. And by the way, it's summertime, so we have Mando and CTO off on vacation. And appreciate you all for coming. Great show. And thank you to the mods in the chat. Don't forget links below for these fine gentlemen. Have a great week,
remember,
everybody.
James, I'm traveling to Australia in July, so we'll have to work that out, what time it is.
That's right. Well, Rob, you're welcome anytime. I'll send you the agenda. People really appreciated your calmness in times of stress.
This is pretty much me 24/7. All right.
Yeah. 10,000 people watching. Thank you all. Take care, everybody.
James.
Bye-bye.
Peace out,
Bye, guys.